My name's Chelsea. I am a Canadian. I'm living on the Gold Coast in Australia. I've been living there for about 3 years, but currently on a little bit of a vacation to Sydney at the moment, visiting friends, doing a bit of training after being, well, basically avoiding a cyclone to the Gold Coast because me and storms do not mix whatsoever. So definitely needed to get out of there. And yeah, it's just been such a fun time getting to train with so many incredibly inspiring people before we get into, I guess, the next training block, a 12-week training block moving into Hyrox Worlds, which will be super exciting. It's going to be a big one. I am going to be doing everything I can to push myself to be the best possible athlete that I can be. So yeah, we'll just definitely get that started next week. But for now, we're just having some fun doing different training, just keeping kind of the volume and load low. While just getting back to enjoying the sport, because after a big competition, I don't know about you guys, but I am always exhausted, and I've been pushing hard for probably about 5 months, and my body just needed a bit of a break. It was definitely time to do a little bit of a deload and kind of build up that inspiration and motivation again to be able to keep competing. But yeah, let's start from the beginning. So my background is track running and cross country. As a kid, I basically played a million different sports. I was really fortunate. My parents put me through literally every sport that I could possibly do, like swimming, soccer, basketball. I think I did some volleyball at one point. I did softball slash baseball. I did dance for quite a while. What else did I do? We swam, did some swimming in high school as well too. But I would say soccer and running were probably my two favorites. That's what I really enjoyed. Oh yeah, I did some figure skating as well too. Attempted synchro swimming. Didn't like that. Didn't like being underwater for that long and having to hold your breath forever. Yeah, so I basically had the option to do whatever I want when I was younger, which is so cool because that's really what's driven me to be an athlete from the start, is having exposure to all of that. I remember days where you'd work out in the morning, go to school, and then after school I'd get picked up. I would have to have had all of my bags packed. I remember I think it was, we'd do basketball practice after school right away, and then I'd get picked up from that and then get driven to either track or soccer, sometimes both. And then by the time I was home, I'd be eating dinner in the car between sports and getting home at 9:30, 10, all to just do it the next day. So I think that in itself built me into the athlete that I am and really taught me about everything I know about making sure that you're resting, making sure that you are organized, prepared, and just mentally being able to push myself to different limits. That was definitely, that was pretty crazy. I definitely look back on those days fondly when everything was done for me. Like dinner was cooked, didn't have to worry about anything. All I had to do was be there and know where I was supposed to be. Not even that, my parents knew where I had to be. So I just went and played sports, which I do miss those days, absolutely. But yeah, it was so much fun. And then we got eventually into just soccer and running as I kind of got towards the end of high school, was focusing a lot more on the studying side of things. Not that I didn't before, but knowing I had to go to university, and to do that I had to get good grades, and if I wanted to get a scholarship anywhere, it was going to have to be through really good times and really good grades. So that was definitely a driving factor for me to make sure that I narrowed down what I wanted to do. Still did the school sports like swimming and basketball and everything, but those seasons are really short. So it really was soccer outside of that, and of course athletics, track, and cross country. So eventually ended up deciding that I was going to go full into athletics, and I think that was the biggest change for me, was going from playing multiple sports to all of a sudden focusing in on one. That mentally, I think, was the toughest thing, because before I was just out there having fun in everything I did, and then all of a sudden you put a bit of pressure on one specific sport and to get the times that you needed to get. That is definitely the hardest part of being an athlete, is making sure that you are really competing at your top constantly, because at that point I then had scouts and different universities watching me by that 10th, 11th, 12th grade. Somewhere in between all of that, I was studying and trying to get the best grades I could to go into a bachelor's of science, so that I could kind of have a bit of an option. Back in Canada, you can't really do a professional degree right away. You have to do your bachelor's degree, which is like 4 to 5 years of university. And then from there, you can then go and do a master's. So I couldn't go straight into physio, which we'll touch on in a second, straight out of high school. You had to do a bachelor's of science, which is what I ended up doing in the end. But yeah, I guess there's so many different things that I was able to do through athletics. Like, I had the opportunity to go on Team Canada at one point in my career, quite young, which was definitely nerve-wracking, and mentally, I think mentally, it was probably the toughest thing I'd ever gone into, and I definitely did not perform how I should have performed, and I think I got really caught up in the moment, but it was really cool to get to go onto my first Canadian team and to go to a World Championships as a child, and that was really cool. Did that for the steeplechase. We went to the Ukraine. That was an experience in itself, going to a country that was a bit war driven at that point. I think there ended up being bombings or something, like in the city or the city next to where we were a couple weeks after we'd left, which is like super crazy, and I try not to think about that because that could have ended really badly. But yeah, it was a really cool experience, got to meet some really cool people. I think that's what ultimately made me want to go into physio, was seeing the physios that were getting to travel on these teams, getting to chat with them quite a lot. And I really had a good time getting to see that sort of side of sports, and what a professional career could look like in sports if it wasn't as an athlete. So that was really interesting. And yeah, got to do lots of provincial teams, national teams, got to do quite a few competitions, compete at pretty high levels all the way up through not only high school, but then into university as well. My first year, I ended up going and getting recruited to the US to a school called Eastern Washington. That was an experience in itself. I unfortunately was overtrained, got injured, started hating the sport right in that first year, was so unmotivated to keep going. A lot of our team, just went through very similar different things, and was trying to do all I could, but even being on a full ride scholarship, it just wasn't worth it for me. I knew that my mental state meant so much more to me than even just being in the sport, and I knew I had to leave if I was ever going to love the sport again. So did that for a year. Don't regret anything about it because it taught me some really good lessons. But being in the NCAA, and especially Div 1, there's just such high expectations on you, and I wouldn't say it's all it's cut out to be. So yeah, that's always food for thought for anyone wanting to go to the US to compete and train at a university. Just definitely make sure you're going to a school that seems right for you. And then after that, we decided to go back to Canada. I ended up going to a university called Simon Fraser. I knew that that was the school that I was definitely meant to be at, both academically, it's one of the hardest schools in Canada, as well as just the team itself and the caliber of athletes that come out of that program. My coach was an Olympian. Her daughters also were very high level. There was a bunch of Olympians that trained with us, despite even when they're at university, and then continued afterwards. So there was always a whole lot of motivation in the sport, being able to train at that really high level with people that were also at a high level. So that was really cool, and had lots of opportunities to be able to compete still in the US because we were the only Canadian university in the NCAA. We were at a Div 2 level, but most of the time we competed at Div 1, especially in California. We were constantly training, traveling. I did so many exams on a bus or an airplane. That was a whole experience in itself. But yeah, it was just so much fun. I think if anyone has the opportunity to be a part of a team and get basically paid to be an athlete and go to school, absolutely 100% you should push for it, because that is probably the coolest thing you get to do as an athlete, is getting trips paid for, food paid for, accommodation paid for. Like now, I can't even believe how much things cost. It's wild. It's absolutely wild. And I definitely took that for granted when I was on the team. I didn't realize the cost of things and how much time and effort went into all of the races that we traveled for, because honestly, we traveled like every weekend. It was insane because I competed in 3 different seasons: cross country, indoor track, outdoor track, which, yeah, that in itself, wild. Um, that was those were big competing seasons, but I guess that's similar to Hyrox now. So yeah, I guess it was really helpful and prepared me for that. But I think, yeah, the biggest thing I learned from that was it's really hard to balance wanting to do really well in university and knowing I needed like the best grades possible to then also competing in a high level as well too. Something had to give. And I think I definitely let the athletic side of things slide more than I should have. And I was injured constantly, which I now understand why I was injured all the time. But at the time I didn't, and that mentally was really taxing, and I was not mentally strong at any point probably in my time at the university. I think I only had maybe 3 or 4 like memorable races that I can think of on the top of my head, and they were in my last few years of competing, getting to go to the NCAA championships for steeplechase as well as with our cross country teams, and being able to compete at that high level. Like I was never good at it, honestly. I think mentally I'd always be thinking about the fact that I had to go and do an exam afterwards or before, or I was just so exhausted that I just was so ready for a break. But yeah, that was a really good experience. I think, like, moral of the story is all of those different events and opportunities that I had, coaches, different sports even, all of that has just like shaped me into the athlete I was today. And honestly, like, it's all just like muscle memory at this point. Um, it's just, yeah, absolutely grateful for every opportunity that I had, and that my family supported me 100% through all of that. And then I had some good coaches, some not so good coaches, but in the end, overall, I'd say I was pretty lucky and had a lot of people believing in me, which was really helpful too. So yeah, that's kind of what happened all the way up through university. And then COVID hit. And I really tried my hardest to keep training. I honestly was probably at like the peak of my training career by the time I think COVID hit, March, and by the time I hit July, I was the fittest I'd ever been. All I was doing was concentrating on training. I had zero stresses other than COVID, of course, but honestly, where I was pretty lucky. We didn't really have to worry about too much of it. I was able to just go drive somewhere, train, run, have some fun, get to spend downtime with people, which is something that, like, I guess through university, I'd always just been go, 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 and never had that opportunity to just down regulate and take some time off. And I think being able to focus 110% in my training allowed me to really get to that next level. And yeah, I remember just randomly one day going out and doing like a 1:25 half marathon just for fun. And I've now beaten that since I've been back training again. But yeah, that was just like the best time ever. And I think I've always known that if I was to go 110% in that, I need to take away a lot of the extra stressors and stuff of my life. And I knew that, I guess that's kind of where I'm at now, and I really want to do well in this sport. And so we'll touch in a second about kind of what my next directions are. But I knew that I needed to make some serious changes if I was going to be training again and getting to that elite level in Hyrox and running again. So yeah, after basically I did that half marathon, I think I got a little bit injured, and COVID did not seem like it was going to clear up. So I basically decided that that was it for me. I was going to not finish my last season of university. Outdoor track, I wasn't going to wait around a whole entire year to be able to do that. So I decided that I was going to retire from training, from running, from everything. And I decided that I'd give it a try being just like a normal athlete. No, a normal person, sorry, not even an athlete. And just see what that life was like, because I'd always questioned in the back of my mind what it would be like to be a normal person. But honestly, like, I now realize that that is not the life for me. But for 3 years, I decided to stop training completely. I would occasionally run, but every single run felt terrible. So what was the point in doing that? I went full on in as a hospitality worker during COVID, ended up working my way up the chain pretty quickly, started doing some managing at a couple different breweries and restaurants. And then from there, I pretty much decided that I was ready to go back to school. And I started looking at physio schools, knowing that was always my direction. A lot of people told me that my grades weren't good enough. What's the point in going into physio? You might as well just stay as an exercise scientist and do pretty well for yourself there. But I always knew that anytime someone tells me you can't do something, I'm just gonna go figure out a way to do it. So for me, that looked like going overseas and doing my physio degree somewhere else. So I was always tossed up between doing the UK or Australia, but I don't like the cold weather very much, and knowing the UK was basically like Canada, I decided that I was gonna go to Australia. So applied to a couple different universities, ended up picking Bond University and their Doctor of Physio program. And we moved to Australia as soon as the borders opened. I did 9 months of that degree online, which was absolute hell, honestly. And I only made it through because of the amazing people that were in the program as well too, that also lived around Vancouver. We would meet up and do some study sessions together, and honestly, that was the only thing that got me through that point of the degree, because studying online is not fun, and the hours we had to be in class as well too were completely different, obviously being like on the other side of the world. So that was completely different to me as well. But we finally made it to Australia. As soon as I got here, my friend Jordan and I basically looked at each other and were like, yeah, no, we're never leaving. So finished off our degree. I ended up going in, doing quite well in that degree as well too. And I, wasn't really training again at that point. I kind of would do a little bit in the gym, but nothing ever motivated me. I never had a goal in mind. I was just having some fun, and eventually graduated in May of 2023. 2023, 2 years later. Completely drained and just absolutely exhausted. I, after that, went straight into work because as a broke uni student, all you want is a full-time income and security with money. So I decided that I would go straight into work. I outsourced a job, did pediatric physio for 2 years. I absolutely love the job. I just found that by the end of it, I was completely burnt out. By this point, I'd really started focusing on athletic endeavors again, and I just knew I couldn't balance both of them as effectively as I wanted to while meeting the requirements of the job and being 100% in for the families. Working with kids with disabilities is so full on, absolutely exhausting. You have so many things that you're constantly thinking about. Like, I took home everything that families told me and always had it in the back of my mind of how can I better help these people? How can I better help these kids? And then I ended up taking more of a direction, I guess, in disability sport. I always knew that I really wanted to help coach kids, and that was something I did pretty much all the way through growing up. I would always be coaching kids, helping people with technique, and eventually that started drifting into the disability sector. I've taken a different approach, basically to therapy in that sense, and aim to get back into it shortly, but looking more from a global perspective and getting kids involved in sport as a way to reach their therapy goals. I did my first track session ever December of 2023. My friend decided that she wanted to do a session, and I was visiting her in Melbourne at the time, and I said, yeah, I guess I could. I mean, I haven't really been training, but I'll just get out there and see how I go. I ended up having literally the best time ever. I felt so much pain, but something in that day sparked a little bit more of a desire to get back into running again. Like, granted, I hadn't really ran in 3 years. I hadn't trained in 3 years. I was just that sedentary person that occasionally went to the gym because they were supposed to be fit and active. And honestly, I was not working out. I was so unfit. And yeah, I just decided in that moment that I didn't want my life to look like this anymore. I needed to make some serious changes. And I guess that year previously, I knew that already and had already started making quite a few changes in my life. Got out of a long-term relationship that ended up being more of a situationship by the end of it, and just knew that it was time to put me first and to do things that I wanted to do. So I ended up getting back into running training again, decided this time I was going to try coaching myself, because having coaches in the past, I was never able to really listen to my body. And after going through my physio degree, I knew all the different areas of training that I had really messed up in and why I was injured all the time. Basically, I didn't strength train, I didn't do any recovery, I didn't do any prehab. I was just running and trying to do uni, and all of that combined, terrible. It was just putting my body through stress and stress and stress, and both physically as well as emotionally and mentally. And I just knew that that was not going to be good for me. I needed to actually listen to my body. I needed to try coaching myself, because I'd never really done any specific high performance coaching before, but I knew what I needed to do from all those years of training and having other coaches, being able to take bits and pieces and knowing what worked best for me. So I ended up deciding I was going to sign up to my first half marathon, which is the longest distance I'd ever ran. I think before that, I'd done that one long half marathon when I was training post-COVID or during COVID, but that was a rare one for me. Like, I was definitely a 5K, 10K runner through and through. That was going to be my max, and I decided, well, we might as well really push ourselves, try something different, and see if we really like it. And so yeah, I got into road running, ended up doing really well, getting almost just above, what did I get? I got a 124 in the half marathon at the Gold Coast Mara. That was even with me having some serious stomach issues after taking a second gel, which I hadn't practiced before. Do not try that. Definitely practice taking your gels during, but for me, I'd never been like someone who took gels ever in my running career, and I think I got a little bit worried and started doing them in the last few weeks leading into the race. But yeah, I am really proud of that result, getting a 124 low, basically 123 high, and just seeing what I could do and how much I could push myself again. The fact that like I was actually like good at running again. I could actually run, I could train. I was able to achieve a goal that I never even thought I could achieve. And I think after that, I took a couple weeks off and said that I would keep running, but I think I needed to change my direction. And that's when I learned about Hyrox. A friend of mine had done a doubles race, and I'd been chatting to her all about it and just being like, oh, this sounds kind of fun. Like, I'm definitely up for a challenge. I don't really lift weights still. I've gotten a bit better, but at this point, like, I was not doing any real heavy lifting by any means. I wasn't getting stronger, but I knew I could run. And everyone kept saying, it's a runner's race, it's a runner's race. Like, if you can run, you can do it. So I said, all right, let's learn the movements. Let's learn what this kind of entails. By this point, I think it was end of August of last year, so 2024, and I ended up signing up to a mixed doubles race with a friend. We ended up actually not competing together in that mixed doubles race because of just, I guess, like how my training was going, and I kind of got the bug and got really excited to potentially do it solo. So I ended up 2 weeks out telling my partner I wasn't doing it with them, which I guess wasn't the nicest thing to do, but the level of training I'd been putting in compared to what they were putting in was not even comparable. So I knew I owed it to myself to really try and go and do a solo race and see kind of what I could do. All of my training had been solo because they weren't training with me at any point in that lead up to December Hyrox in Melbourne. And I just decided, well, we might as well go do it. Like, fuck it, let's go do a race all by ourselves and just see what happens. But yeah, that training block was really fun. I learned so many things about training, compromised running, being able to build strength, and learning how to I guess, keep that endurance going for those longer periods of time. Because like I said, I was a 5K, 10K runner. Like none of those reach anywhere near an hour plus of working hard and having to run on tired and fatigued legs. Like if my legs were tired before, you would not find me running the next day. Like I would be taking a recovery day versus running through that soreness, those DOMs, and pushing myself to those next levels. So yeah, we ended up, I guess, in Melbourne doing the solo race, and I knew I could probably do pretty good, but I ended up with, yeah, that last minute change, ended up doing a 10, what did I do? A 108, which, oh no, it was a 107 high, almost 108. And I did that, yeah, off of, I think it ended up being 10 weeks of training for that race, and it was just like the most fun I've ever had. The environment in Hyrox is insane. It's so cool. I have never experienced anything like that before. I thought the whole vibe, even though they were playing Christmas music during my race, I've got a reel where the end of it is me finishing the race and Jingle Bell Rock coming on. Not a vibe. Hopefully they don't do that again this year. I would just like some pump up music the whole time, thanks. But yeah, that was such a fun experience. I learned that I could push myself so much more, and I knew in that race, like, I had not pushed myself. I was recovering in the runs, I was relaxed, I was working hard in the stations, and then I get into the run and I'd just chill. So I knew I had so much more to give. And by that point, I had just missed out on qualifying for Worlds by one spot. I thought I got it in the race, but then one of the girls, who's now a really good friend of mine, she was in a different heat, and she ended up beating me out, me and the other girl in our race out, which was super cool, but ended up with a third place in that one and just a fire to keep going. And I was like, I deserve that world spot. I'm gonna go, I'm gonna make it. And I ended up training straight through, basically all through Christmas break, and then went to Auckland in February, first week of February, and I knew that I had one chance really here to be able to get that world spot, and I pushed myself, ended up getting a PB by over a minute, in some crazy environments. Like, if they thought Hyrox wasn't hard enough, they decided to add a hill right after the rock zone. It was an outdoor loop. We were in, like, I don't even know, 25-degree weather, humidity, running outside for the full 1K outdoor loop, and then coming back inside to where there was no aircon, sweating. Everything was slipping. I almost fell off the rower at one point. The rower handle almost slipped out of my hands multiple times. I saw it happen to so many people. My friend Travis, I'm pretty sure it happened to him. It was just an insane race. But I ended up gritting down, just getting it done, and ended up walking away with a first major, and ended up getting a PB, and also that world spot. I was able to solidify it, which was absolutely incredible. That was like the best feeling ever. But I knew my work was not done. I knew I was going to be competing in Brisbane, trying my first ever pro race, and I knew I just had to push it as hard as I possibly could to get stronger, to get fitter, and really be able to push myself as hard as I possibly could. So yeah, that was definitely, I think, a turning point for me, knowing that, oh, I'm really about to take this seriously. Like, I am gonna 100% go in and be an athlete again. I am going to take the sacrifices that I need to do to be able to get there, and we just pushed ourselves as much as we possibly could. Like, every single day, it was wake up early, do a workout, go into work sometimes 9.5, 10-hour days, go straight to the gym, do another 2 to 3 hour session, come home and eat dinner, go to bed, repeat all the days of the week. And then on the weekends, I finally had time, but those were always my hardest sessions. Those were always the hit sessions. So the whole time I'd do a workout, and then the whole rest of the day I'd just be absolutely exhausted, shell of a human. Never could do anything enjoyable and fun for me. I always felt like I was pushing myself 1,010%, and just completely burning myself out. And I knew I was burning out, but I I guess, neglecting the fact that I was burning out, and I was just pushing myself to every single limit in everything I do. And that brought me into Brisbane, where I ended up doing 3 races. I wouldn't say that it's easy by any means. It was actually probably the hardest thing I've ever done. And I just knew that there was so many things I wanted to accomplish in Brisbane. I ended up doing a 108 in my women's solo pro division. That ended up getting me a pretty decent time overall. I think I ended up 4th in age group and 5th or 6th overall. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, that was a crazy race in itself. Being able to basically replicate my open solo time in a pro race, and knowing I had so much more even to give. Like, I definitely pushed myself in that pro race, but again, it's the first time I've ever done that weight before. So now I've learned that I can actually push myself a lot more in the running than I probably think I can. And I'm only getting stronger. I'm only getting faster. So there's a lot of good things coming. I can definitely guarantee that I will be back, and I will be running and moving myself a lot quicker on that course the next time around. Also, the amount of people you have to dodge in some of these major races, like, I'm so tempted to go to a smaller race where there's only a few thousand people signed up and just try to send it, because then you're not dodging people and you can actually run maybe a bit of faster time. So that's a TBD. I haven't decided where I'm going yet, but I'm kind of down to go somewhere where it's a very small race and just really send it. But yeah, that was my solo race. Then the next day, I completely backed that up with a mixed doubles, and my partner Chaz, absolutely incredible. He was fresh coming into that race. I was not. I was in a whole world of pain, even though I tried to pretend I wasn't. Everything hurt. Like, that night before, I had done everything in my power to recover. I hopped on the bike for 20 minutes post-race, even though I was exhausted, just to get that lactic out of my legs. I was in compression tights, compression socks, compression boots. Shout out to the Benefit guys. You guys saved my butt 100% in that changeover between those 2 events over that day, those 2 days of Brisbane. I couldn't have done it without you guys. And I just knew I had my nutrition in, using fiber supplements at the moment, and they've been incredible, super easy to digest, and my body's been really loving them. So that was a big thing as well too, getting in that protein within 30 minutes after the race, getting just every supplement I could possibly think of, magnesium, made sure I got the creatine in to help with muscle recovery and be ready for the next day. There was just so many different things that I did. Went to bed absolutely exhausted, woke up not too sore, but definitely still my body was exhausted, my mind was exhausted, and I just knew that mentally I was going to have to go into this and be the toughest person I could be for my partner. And we ended up walking away with 56, which we were super happy with. It was under a goal of sub 57, and yeah, we know we have so much more to give. We unfortunately didn't podium in that either, but after me not being able to basically move that morning, to then being able to compete at that high level again and really do the most on the course and leave nothing out there, I know we have so much more to give when I'm fresh, and we're coming for you. Like, we're so excited to do it. We've got a race already lined up for mixed doubles, and we're gonna send it. It's gonna be the best time. I can't wait for us to both be fresh, both be at like our fittest performance, and we'll be definitely making moves in the course, that's for sure. But I think overall that was a really good race, and I'm proud of us for doing that first time. We had never trained together, but we'd been chatting a whole bunch, and I think that was, we did so well. I was so proud of us. I know what we can do, and it's definitely not that. It's way faster. So I'm really excited to see what happens with that in the future. Then move on to race 3. By this point, if I wasn't tired already, I was exhausted. I was in so much pain. The DOMs were definitely hitting, and all I did again, hopped on the bike. I recovered. I made sure to get some food in me, just really simple carbs, knowing that I was about to race again in a few hours. and ended up teaming up with my friend Amy and then two guys that I had sort of met in Auckland, not really, just had started following them, and I ended up DMing them and saying, hey, you guys want to run a relay? I'll be a girl in that relay. And yeah, shout out to Luke and Jackson. You guys absolutely were legends. And honestly, our relay team was just like next level. We knew we were going to run fast, but yeah, we had some big goals in mind. We were going for the APAC record. We smashed the APAC record, and then we got DQ'd. So unfortunately, that time does not exist anywhere in the world except on our phones. So I know that we have so much more to give in that relay, and I'm so excited for the next time we run it back. It's going to be insane. We are going to absolutely smash it once again. So yeah, that's all fun and games. Once I finished that, I obviously was just so mentally drained from that weekend. Like, that took so much mental strength. That was the most I think I've ever pushed myself ever. And I had the biggest come down from that whole weekend. I was so focused on competing and performing that by the time the weekend was done, it just felt like the whole world had crashed down. And I came home, all of a sudden there was going to be a cyclone in the Gold Coast, and I knew mentally I could not handle that. I've never been good with storms. I have had some serious challenges mentally with storms since moving to Australia. So I up and left and came to Sydney, and here we are. I've been down here now for a week, and it's been so much fun. I've gotten some good training, caught up with so many different people, and had some insane training sessions so far with a lot of Hyrox friends. And it just inspires me so much more to do the best I can in this sport. Like, I am so excited to see what can happen next, and I have so many career plans that I also want to do in this sport. I think that it's just such an exciting time to be a part of Hyrox. There's so much happening. I've had a lot of people reaching out in terms of brands and sponsors, so hopefully some things start lining up with those. And I'm just so excited to see what happens next. I think these next 12 weeks are going to be some of the hardest 12 weeks of training that I've ever done, but I think I'm just going to make sure I have fun with it, because I don't want to get too tied down into training. Obviously, I'm still going to be making sure I hit all of my non-negotiables, getting a lot of rest recovery so that I can show up to each training session absolutely prepared and ready to go. But it's going to be something fun, I think. Like, I haven't been at a world level championships since I was like in the summer between 9th and 10th grade, so 2013. Yeah, don't go look up that race. It was not good. I did well for the first couple laps, and then I don't even think I'm in the video anymore on YouTube. But that was my first time and last time at a world championship level, so I've learned a lot since then, and I know it's going to be a lot better. And I just can't wait to prove myself, I guess, to the world and show everyone what I can actually do, because I feel like I haven't actually been 100% pushed yet in a race. A lot of times I've been kind of out front or leading it, or just nowhere near anyone else. And I would love to be neck and neck with someone the entire race. Like, mentally, I think I'm ready for that, and I think that's going to help push me to that next level. So yeah, lots of learning to happen, lots of training to happen, and we'll definitely keep you posted throughout. I hope that sheds a little bit of a background in kind of who I am, what I've been doing, how I've got to where I am today. And I am so excited to take everyone on this journey. I think there's some big things coming, and I am just so excited to share it with everyone, keep track of it all. I will definitely keep you guys posted on what's to come, and I can't wait. So we'll see you guys next time.